Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus. I am the founder and CEO of True You Teams. And here we go. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus, and we have John Murphy with us today. Hi, John.
Tina, it's a great honor to be here and a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, definitely. I'm so excited to have you on and have a discussion. We just met. I did not know you before today, and so I'm really excited to get to know you.
Absolutely. Me too.
Let me, I'm going to read your bio and then we'll get into some questions. How's that?
Great. Look forward to it.
Okay. So what I love most about your bio is that you use the term BHAG, because I haven't heard that in a long time, and that's amazing. So John's BHAG, and for those of you who don't know what that is, that's Big, Hairy, Audacious Goals. As Jim Collins, that's a term from Jim Collins, called it for his clients, is to help them make a life of not just living. And that's my favorite part. John wants to help his clients create both success and significance in their lives. John Murphy is a results-oriented business coach and mentor to senior executives and CEOs. He's a great communicator with broad experience and is skilled at discussing issues that make businesses and individuals grow and thrive. John lives and works in the south of France, which is amazing. So he's coming to us all the way from France today, originally from Ireland, and you'll know that when you hear him start talking. Before starting his own business, John enjoyed a highly successful career in the corporate world. He began as a door-to-door life assurance salesman. I'm so curious to know more about that. My background's the insurance. He began as a door-to-door assurance salesman and culminated as a CEO of Pan-European Life Assurance Company in Ireland. John started his business, John Murphy International, in 2004 and has worked worldwide across the broad range of industries. His clients include major corporations such as Pfizer, Circle K, Merck, State Street Bank, Vodafone, is that how you pronounce that? Vodafone, and others. So John, that's quite a resume, quite a bio. Welcome.
Thank you indeed, Tina. It'll all go downhill from here, I can see.
No, it's going to go uphill. I'm sure of it. So tell us about John Murphy. I'm so intrigued to know, what do you do? Tell us about your background.
Well, the background said to you, I started off my corporate career, which sounds very grandiose now, and I say it, but I started off, as you say, selling insurance door to door, which is, nobody ever kind of dreams of being a door-to-door insurance salesperson. And the background to that was that I had actually been in a completely different business in my early 20s. I set up a business and I ran it successfully for a couple of years, and then the business went sour and lost that business. And of course, then I had to find a job. And the quickest job that I found was actually selling insurance. And I never in my wildest dreams thought I would sell insurance. I didn't even understand anything about it. And but I started because I needed money, so it was an imperative. I had just got married. And so I started as a door-to-door salesman. And to my surprise, I was actually quite good at it. And so then progressed from there, became a sales manager, moved to a few different companies, then kind of got into the kind of corporate route seriously. Then I became a sales director of a company. Then I was a marketing director, moved once or twice in different companies. And so the kind of corporate career was great. And then ultimately got the kind of to the pinnacle for me, as I saw it, as to be the CEO, which had become the ambition, and I did that job. And it was great. I enjoyed it. Being honest, I did it for 7 years. I enjoyed the first 5 years, and after 5 years, I began to feel, you know what, I'm beginning to repeat myself, and so the challenge was, do I stay? And kind of put up with it. But I never wanted to do that because I saw people in the corporate world who had done that and ended up quite bitter and kind of, didn't like it. I know you, because you've been in the corporate world as well. And or, do I go to another company? And then I thought, well, if I go to another company, it's kind of pretty similar job, but just a different logo outside the door. And so I said, okay, well, what do I really want to do? But the part of the job that I loved doing
Hmm.
was hiring people, coaching people, and building teams.
Right.
And I really, really got a great kick out of it. So I thought, why don't I go and actually just build a business doing that? So I took the leap. And as you well know, I mean, the corporate world is great. I mean, it was very good to me, so I have no complaints about it. Obviously, I hope I was good to it. But you also get, as a CEO, you're well rewarded, you're well looked after. To actually step out and start a business on your own is one of these. People say you're mad. I mean, you're absolutely insane to
Right.
do it. And but I felt it would just eat my soul if I stayed.
Hmm.
And so I decided to leave and did that 16 years ago, and never looked back, never regretted it for a day. It's not to say that there haven't been tough times, but I never regret it for a day.
That's amazing. So how has 2020 changed all that, or evolved it, or reinvented it? Like, how is 2020?
Well, it's really interesting asking that, Tina, because I had, I said, but the primary work I do executive coaching and I do team coaching.
Hmm.
And very often I do, executive and team coaching, where I
At the same
coach
time,
the boss and the team at the same time. So
right?
the two things that I do, and I changed probably about 10 to 12 years ago, that all of the executive coaching I would do virtually. So I
Mhm.
did none face to face.
So
And
you
the
were
reason
kind of
I
set up
changed
for
that, sorry?
it. So you were kind of set up for it.
Well, I was for the executive coaching. So and the reason that I changed at that time was that I felt it was just a more efficient way of doing it. Also, because of the nature of the clients that I was dealing with, a lot of them traveled. And I know nobody's traveling at the moment, but a lot of them traveled. So it gave greater flexibility. And also, I wanted to, I mean, at that time I was still based in Ireland when I started. I wanted to expand the business outside of Ireland because, as you know, Tina, it's kind of easy to stay within the market where you've got connections and contacts and kind of build from there. But I had an ambition to kind of make it a much more international and global company,
Mhm.
and I thought, well, if I stay in Ireland, that's not going to really help me do that. So we moved, my wife and I moved to France, and that really forced me to do it. So, which was great. And then I started doing business here in Europe. And then that led me to being asked by a number of the company I was working with in Europe, would I go to the US and work over there? So then I had to go through the whole process of applying for a visa to go and work in the US, and I did that. But in 2020 it was interesting because, like everybody else, I mean, the whole COVID thing came out of the blue, and you wonder what's going to happen. But the interesting thing was that, I mean, the virtual coaching just stayed and continued on. So that wasn't any issue. The team programs, historically, I would have gone to where the companies were. I would travel to the US or different parts of Europe and do the work there. So we were forced really to say, okay, well, instead of doing it face to face, let's actually recreate it and reshape it so that we could do the team programs virtually, because we recognized that we needed to do that in order to kind of fulfill the commitments that we had with companies that we said we were going to work with them and with the teams for 2020. And it's curious. We end so instead of actually doing it where we do a kind of a day, and then we'd come back and do another day in 2 or 3 months time, and then so forth throughout the year. Instead of having a day, we actually broke it down into 3 2.5 hour sessions
Yeah.
over a space of 2 weeks. Because and as you know from working with clients, even to have a full day face to face, your ability to concentrate and for the participants to concentrate the full day, there's diminishing returns. The 2.5 hours, I actually genuinely believe, and certainly the feedback we're getting from clients is that the quality of the 2.5 hour sessions is higher than it would be for a single day. So we've been able to pivot and do that, and I think it's worked out extraordinarily well for us and for the clients. And I'd have to say that, and I do say this with gratitude, is that in terms of business, it's been a very, very good year.
Mhm.
It hasn't negatively impacted us, and I say that with great gratitude, I have to say. So I've been very, very lucky. I'd also that the clients that I'm dealing with, um, in sectors that have not been as adversely affected as some others, because I do a lot in the pharma world,
Mm.
and they, have not been negatively affected. So, that's been fortunate as well. But
Yeah.
I think just the ability to be nimble and the ability to adopt really helps in that time.
Right. I love what you're talking about, because when like March happened, right? That's kind of when everything
Yeah.
started kind of escalating or moving forward or whatever, however you want to say it. Um, a lot of people were like, they kind of went into scared mode. They went into, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do mode. There's no way that I can do what I do in my work online. And I think what like you said, we found completely different. And so talk to us a little bit about the effectiveness and when you're coaching teams, so multiple people, you're online and you're leading them through the leadership development space. Because I myself didn't believe that transformation could happen online.
Yeah.
I was very used to doing it live, 3-4 days in a row, like you talked about. And man, online is magical. In some
It
ways, it's magical.
it is. I think that one of the things one of the things that we were really concerned about when we were reshaping the team program to be virtual is that, you know, if you're in a room with people, you get the conversation kind of goes. But if you've got people on the screen and you've got particularly when I say a large group, I mean typically it wouldn't be more than around 12 people, right?
Right.
That you'd have within a team. But it's very easy just to end up just talking at people, right? So the challenge, I think, is to really make sure that you're engaging them
Mhm.
in conversation, so they don't feel that it's a slide deck and it's a presentation. It's a that you actually can create a real conversation. So we've, I mean, thankfully the technology is there to do that, because you can create breakout rooms where you send people off to actually have conversations, and then they come back into kind of the plenary session. And that really, I mean, I just, it's late afternoon for me, but I mean, I just did a 2.5 hour session just about finished about a half an hour before we started here.
Yeah.
And we had a group, and they ended up having just a huge conversation, a really deep conversation about how they work as a team. So I
Mhm.
think that, it's a combination of using the technology, but making sure that you really do engage them and involve them. And it's breaking the energy in terms of that you've got a kind of plenary session, you've got breakout sessions, and it makes sure that everybody is involved in it. And I
Yeah.
think that's the important piece, because I've seen other things where it's actually been a bit like I'm just watching a slide deck, and
Right.
and and
Exactly.
and, and that's as boring as watching paint dry.
Mhm.
So, I think that you've really got to make sure that you're getting that engagement. And if you're not getting the engagement, then it's not worth it. But I think that there's also, breaking the kind of the cadence of it, that you've got kind of a group, you've got small groups, you get it back, and so you just break up the kind of the rhythm of it a little bit to keep that engagement. But it's the technology just makes it so doable. And I mean, I'd love to say that I knew this before we reshaped it. I didn't. And it was a bit of trial and error, but I really believe that what we've come up with and kind of stumbled over is something that's really effective. And I think that it just opens it out to greater flexibility and making it much easier in the future. And I think that's been one of the drivers of COVID, Tina, to a large extent, because I think that remote working. I mean, obviously it wasn't new beforehand, but everybody working remotely 100% of the time, that was new.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of question marks and a lot of doubts that it would work. And I find it really interesting that working with companies, I'm not hearing companies saying productivity is really suffering or
Yeah.
productivity is down.
Yeah.
In actual fact, and the one that I find absolutely fascinating, and I've heard this from so many clients of mine and other companies, is that they're saying that the silos have been broken down during
Yeah.
this time. Now, in a strange way, you think they'd nearly be reinforced
Yeah.
because we're physically distanced. But people have been forced to actually communicate across organizations much more so. And I think that's a really surprising benefit
Mhm.
of the whole remote piece. But, I mean, thank God we have it, because if this was 10, 12, 15 years ago,
Who knows what
different
would
world.
happen, right? Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even just from a connection standpoint, not everybody's okay right now. and technology allows us to stay connected when we can't be together physically.
Yeah.
So that's really good too. Talk to us about what your why is.
My why is yeah, it's interesting because I always think that, it's one of these things that you really got to figure out. And to me, it really is about empowering people to live a life of significance and growth across all aspects of their lives. Because, and I actually do write out my vision statement, my mission statement every day, fully,
Awesome. It's
right?
great. It's a great tool.
Because it connects me back to why I do what I do. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm in the very fortunate position that I love what I do, but you also have to kind of bring it back to why you're doing it. And to me, I've seen, and you know this from the corporate world as well, you've seen so many people who kind of go through the corporate world, but they kind of drift through it a little bit. And sometimes also their whole world and identity gets wrapped up in their role and their title. And yeah, okay. Yeah. And we've all been there,
All
right?
been. Yep.
I've all been, I mean, I'd include myself in that, right?
Yeah.
And and then suddenly, but I mean, as you know as well, the corporate world can come along and take your title and you roll away in a heartbeat, right?
Totally. Yep.
And suddenly your identity is gone. So to me, I kind of learned, having gone down that route, that success was actually about having success across all aspects of my life,
Mhm.
right? And really striving to get that. And I think that it is about having a life that is not just kind of measured by the salary and the money and the size of my house and the car parking space in front of the building, number one car parking space, and all that rubbish that goes with it, right?
Yep.
But that I actually that there is a significance in my life, and that there's a legacy, that I
Mm.
leave a legacy behind, that
Yes.
my time on this earth mattered. Now, I'd be lying to say that was always there. That's been part of my own growth and
Yeah.
evolution.
Yep.
But
We grow into that.
yeah, but I mean, it's something that I'm really passionate about. And even though my work is kind of predominantly and obviously focused on business because that's my background and where my strength is, but when I'm working with a client, it's to me, it's hugely important to ensure that they are growing across all aspects of their lives, and that the work that I'm doing is facilitating that, and is creating an environment through which they are really looking at that to develop it. And that's a challenge, but I think that for me, that's my why. And I'm absolutely passionate about doing that, and I'm fascinated to work with people. And yeah, I mean, I can't do it for them, but you just create that environment and facilitate happening. But when you see it happening, it's wonderful. And I mean, and the corporate world, Tina, very well from your background. And one of the things that I'm always kind of saying to clients is you've got to be intentional about your own career, and proactively manage your own career, and
Mhm.
be clear about where you want to go. And it's not just about the next job and the next title, but is that the work that you want to do? Is that the way you want to spend your day? And be really, really intentional about that. Because I've seen far too often, and you would have seen it too, that people have ended up in jobs and went, how the hell did I end up here?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And are then become kind of somewhat bitter by it, and they might well lose their kind of their energy and their drive, and then they begin to kind of go down the slippery slope, which is a really dangerous thing to do. So to me, it's about, I mean, I don't like the time work-life balance. I hate that term,
Yeah.
because it
Because there's
signifies
no
there's
such
work and
thing.
there's life, right? There's
Yeah.
actually life, and it's actually about finding space in that life to do all the things that you want to do,
Mhm.
whatever it looks like. And by the way, it's never in balance. Right. Because it's
We're
always
always
slightly.
sacrificing one thing for another, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine. And recognizing that there are seasons where you're going to spend more time, in this part of your life and the other parts. But as long as you're recognizing it and you're rebalancing it,
Yeah.
over a period and correcting it, then that's fine. But it's never going to be 50-50. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a silly idea.
Yeah. Talk to us about how leadership has evolved. So we have this old school mentality of leadership,
Yeah.
and we have where we're going in the future.
Yeah, well, I think that, I mean, obviously the old school, I mean, when I started working, I turned up and I just did what I was told. right?
Exactly.
Because if I didn't do what I was told, I was fired. It was just
Yeah,
simple as that, right?
so
So it
true.
was very much about the command and control. And, thankfully, by and large, not completely, but by and large, that has kind of gone. And where it hasn't gone, it's on its way out. And
Especially
it's
with
dying very, very
2020.
quickly. So I think that, you've got to remember that, when you talk about leadership, being a leader doesn't come with a title. You can be any title. You can be president, you can be CEO, you can be manager, you can be a director. Doesn't matter what the hell your title is, right? That doesn't make you a leader. And somebody actually said it to me, and I wish this was my creation, but I won't take credit for it. But said to me, one of the questions that you've got to challenge yourself with is what is it about me that makes me worth following?
Mm,
Because as a leader, if you're not a leader unless you've got followers,
right.
right? And I think that, we hear about the term servant leadership. And I think that that's true. I always think that organizations are drawn the wrong way around with the kind of CEO at the top. It should be because you're there to serve everybody else. You're there to serve everybody else within the organization, to help them, support them, and facilitate them to grow and optimize their potential. That's your job as a leader, is to do that. So it's very, very different. I think some of the challenges and that face is that when you look at the generations, and we're in a situation where in the workforce we've actually got quite a number of different generations,
Okay.
in the workforce at the same time, and particularly with the workforce, the generation that's coming in and is in the workforce right now, they have a very different mindset than the mindset that I would have had when I started. Right? I mean, I just wanted a job
Yeah.
that paid me, right?
Yeah.
And I was happy to kind of go out and do that. Now it's very different. The generation coming, which I think is fantastic. The generation that coming in are looking to be something that they can be engaged with, something that they can identify with, something that actually matters, that is making an impact in society, so that they can buy into that vision and they can buy into that culture. So
Hmm.
I think that, and I think that's fantastic, because I think it's wonderful. And but also they're kind of saying, they're not going to sign up for life. No one's going to do that any longer. So they're going to be with the organization for a number of years. And it's got to be a quid pro quo that, okay, that the organization is getting the benefit of having them, but that the individual is getting the benefit of being developed and grown. And so it's your job as a leader to ensure that you're growing these people, and you're growing that generation coming out, and you're evolving them, and you're figuring out what it is that you're growing. And I see sometimes where I say a disconnect is that the person who is managing the generation doesn't understand that, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Doesn't understand that, and thinks that it's down to the remuneration, the benefits, and all that sort of stuff. And you do that, and we pay you a bonus, and aren't we wonderful, right? And they're just missing the point completely, right? And
Because
that's where
that's
you're
what
getting a big
inspired
disconnect.
them, right?
Pardon?
Because that's what inspired
Yeah,
them.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And it's just not recognizing that it's a very, very different, and it's a very different approach, and it's a very different way of growing and developing and engaging with that generation. And I think, because also I think that generation very rightly feel that, I mean, I know things with COVID and everything, that there are challenges, but moving that to one side, that pretty much that the salary and benefits and all that sort of stuff are kind of a given. And it's, if I don't get it here, well, I get it down the road,
Mm,
right? So it's actually which organization I want to be part of and where there's a fit. And that's where I think that culture and values are playing a much bigger part in organizations. I mean, it's not to say that they haven't in the past, but I think they're much more to the fore. And I think that organizations and leaders have to be very, very explicit about the vision and the mission for the organization, but also the values that organization, and the values are not just, what's up on a plaque in the building, but it's actually what's lived day by day.
yeah.
And they're actually seeing that they actually do live to the value. They don't just say them, but they actually do live by by how they behave day by day.
Yeah. Walking the talk. Totally, totally agree. So if I'm listening to this and I'm kind of stuck in that old school leadership that you talked about, how do I begin to dig out of that and move forward?
Well, I think I mean, most problems are solved by communication, right? And most problems are solved by, if you're looking at the people that is your role to develop and grow, well, go and talk to them. Don't make assumptions that you know. right? Don't make assumptions that you know what's best for them or that you know what they want, because you don't. Go and have a conversation, because I think that, when you're in that leadership role, you're a coach, right?
Mhm.
And a coach isn't prescriptive about what you should want.
Right.
The coach is there to actually find out what you want and then create the environment to help you get there. So I think you've really got to understand that, if you're there to develop these people, you're only going to develop them if you understand them, you understand the needs, you understand what they want to um, grow into and develop into, and then you understand your role in doing that. But for God's sake, stop thinking that what worked when you were that age is what's going to work now,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, the worst thing, and sometimes, it's like being a parent. You always say, when you heard your parents said, "I'll never say that to my children," and then you hear yourself saying that to your children, right? And you
Never
kind
do
of
that
go,
as a leader.
Christ, yeah, why? But do the same thing. Don't think that just what motivated you and engaged you is automatically going to be the same. And why can't they be like me? If they were all like me, life would be perfect, because it isn't. So it's actually really understanding what they need and what they need from you, and then it's contracting with them to actually deliver that and to be
Yeah.
part of their growth.
Right. So what, like, if I were to say, okay, John, over the course, I want to keep it just at 2020, because I know that you have probably this huge long list of lessons learned over the years, but in 2020, what's been your biggest leadership lesson?
I think that you know, I think one of the things is that if you look at what's happened with COVID, I think that it has been a disturbing time, and I think it's been a stressful time. And but I think the one thing to learn is to focus in is that I can only control what I can control,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And because there are lots of things that I can't control, and I see a lot of people getting sidetracked by what I can't do, what might happen, and all of that. And I think you could drive yourself insane focusing on all the imponderables, and nobody has the answer to that. So I think, to me, I think it's about really, focusing on the things that I can control. I'd say part of that as well is the communication, right?
Mhm.
With your people, really communicating with your people and making sure that you're staying in touch, and you are being a servant to those people, right? And really being a servant to those people. What do they need? Because people in different circumstances need different things. I mean, if you're a mother with 3 young children and you're trying to homeschool and do your job, right?
Woo!
That's very different to somebody who's kind of doesn't have children, and they're two adults in a house and they can both separate and go different places. That's very different. So really, really understanding what can you do to really make each individual's role as effective as it possibly can. But
Mhm.
I do think that the kind of primary one is actually really focusing on those things that I can control, and then doing something about those, and not getting hung up on the things that I can't control.
Oh my goodness, the time and energy that we spend on the stuff we can't control. It's crazy, crazy, crazy.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned legacy earlier,
Yes.
and the name of the podcast is Your Leadership Legacy. And so what legacy, John, do you aspire to leave?
I mean, it touches back to what I said at the very beginning. To me, the legacy is that I have really helped people, my clients, the people that I come in contact with, that I've helped them to actually build a life of significance and growth across all aspects of their lives. I mean, that's a very lofty ambition, but I know what that means to me day by day. I know what it means to me in every interaction, and I'm constant. It's why I write it down. I write my mission statement down, as I said, every single day, every single morning. It's one of the first things that I do is I write it out by hand. I don't type it. I write it by hand to remind me that that's what I'm doing. So that in every contact, I really, really strive to do that, because, I do think that, we've all been given a certain amount of talents and gifts. And I think that we all have that. And I think that it's our duty and our responsibility as a member of the human race to actually use those talents for the betterment of others. And the only way that I can do that, because the thing that, going back to control, the things that I can control the connection that I have to people on a daily basis. And that, therefore, for me, I want to really try, don't always do it, but I want to really, really try to make sure that I'm making an impact and that I'm helping people to grow. And I just think that kind of making sure that it is across all aspects of their lives, that it's not just kind of in one particular sector, that it is across all aspects.
Yeah, that's amazing. Beautiful. Where can people find you?
Well, they can go to my website. It's johnmurphyinternational.com, which is about as unoriginal as you will get. But I mean, that's what it is. So johnmurphyinternational.com, they can get me there, or my email is john@johnmurphyinternational.com. I'd be delighted to chat to anybody who wants to get in touch.
Amazing. Amazing. I want to thank you, John, for being on. It was amazing to meet you. I want to acknowledge you for just your depth of experience and knowledge, and what you're doing out in the world. It matters and it makes a difference. So thank you so much for being on.
Tina, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you. And lovely to meet you. I look forward to actually building a relationship. So thank you very much indeed.
All right. Sounds good. All right, you guys, that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time on Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krauss, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueyouteams.com. And until next time, make it an amazing day.